Hi, I'm Shane from Artificial Futures, and this was the site of my descent into madness. I wrote my dissertation here, but actually the thing that really drove me crazy during that time was that whole pandemic thing. It was the isolation. You see, last week, if you remember, we talked about purpose and its criticality to people feeling good about themselves and the work that they do, and how dangerous automation can be when it takes away our purpose. This week, we're going to be talking about what it means to be social in an age of automation. Now, if we look at psychological literature, we look at people like Baumeister and Leary. They talk about the epistemic need for belongingness, this sort of innate desire or need that we have to be able to connect to other people. Deci and Ryan, in their self-determination theory, talked about this as their theory of relatedness, how we have to be connected to those around us in order to sort of feel a part of a community and feel good about ourselves. And to highlight this, we're going to look at an automation failure this week from the 1970s. So we went from the late 17 and early 1800s with the Luddites all the way up to the 1970s. And a fantastic piece of ethnographic research done by Shoshana Zuboff, who's now a professor at Harvard University. You see, what Shoshana did was she went in and investigated a bank that was upgrading computers. But this is maybe a different upgrade from what you're used to. One of my favorite pieces of weird trivia is that the original computer was not an IBM or a Mac. It was actually a human. These were often young, college-educated women who would literally be instructed to compute things all day. They'd be human calculators. They literally just ran through the numbers. And the difference of this scenario was that these human computers went from, doing a lot of work to each other with all of a sudden having computers, electronic computers, put on their desk. And Zuboff's findings were scathing as to the outcomes of what happened. People talked about losing their hair to the radiation, giving up their freedom, feeling like they were imprisoned. It was very visceral language for literally just dropping a computer on somebody's desk. But the point of this is that it missed the point. You see, because before, what had happened was their workplace was a vibrant social network of interaction. Maybe a client would call the bank and tell someone that they wanted to sell some of their stock or bond. That individual who answered the phone would then have to go to speak to one of these human computers who would find out about, what was going on with that client, but also shoot the shit a little bit. And eventually they'd have to figure out how much of the stock they would have to sell given the amount that person wanted. They would validate that and then send it off to someone else who might communicate with somebody on a stockroom floor or some other trader who would get that exchange done, send it back to the person to validate everything, and then eventually call on to the client. It's a full network of people interacting and feeling good about themselves because of that, again, need for belongingness or need for relatedness. Whereas after, most of their work was done on a computer. They didn't have to go have those talks beside each other's desk or find out how their weekend was, see how the kids are doing. It was just putting data manually into a computer. Now, of course, the irony is not lost on me that we currently spend most of our time on computers, and I am speaking to you through a computer. Now, as incredible as Zoom and Teams and Hangouts and things like that are, the sad reality is they're still a poor and sad approximation for the richness of human interaction. And I am a big believer that actually this is one of the biggest problems with how we live today. We all feel a little bit isolated and disconnected because we don't get the amount of correct human interaction that we truly need. So this is the second lesson on automating things within your workplace. The first was around purpose, and today was around that social fabric of your workplace. What's cool, though, is that with some of the technologies that we're starting to get into now, chatbots, robots, and things that they themselves act a bit socially, we don't just have to think about the social interactions between people. We actually have to start to consider the relationships that people will develop with a computer. But I digress. That's probably another conversation for another day. Thanks for joining me on this journey. I hope you come back next week where we'll be talking about our third pitfall around automation, in addition to purpose that we talked about last week and socialization that we talked today. Take care.